One of the most basic, common, and simple questions that we get from beginning traders is, hey, Mike, what should I be journaling? How do I journal? I try to keep it simple. I know, wave the flag. I'm a boomer. Spreadsheets, it just works for me. But for the developing trader, what I've noticed is the way they journal really isn't, I think, what they should be doing. Let's take a deeper dive and see what I think they should be doing. So let's get right to it. First step, number one, all right? What is your journal telling you? Or is your journal data or the things that you're recording telling you anything or able to tell you anything? So that's the key thing. It's a key differential of this is not a recording or documentation task. It is an identification task, risk identification process. We've talked about it several times in these videos. Remember, identification, assessment, control. The journal is a risk identification tool. All right, it's supposed to identify what you're doing versus what you should be doing. And that gap there is really to identify two things. Is it you or is it the markets? All right, so we're going to measure compliance. It's the most important valid takeaway that you can get from your journal. So no more just recording, time of day, things like that. We'll get into some of the specific columns, and time of day is one of them. But to help you in generating this risk identification process, or just identifying what you're doing wrong or what you could be doing better. And the key separator, and there's a lot of sub-variables, but let's keep it simple here in this video. Is it you or is it the market? So we're going to measure compliance, and we'll get to that in a second. Let's get really to number two, right? Is the data that you're entering in your journal able to be sort of data-driven, where it can really help identify particularly metrics that you can measure against? So, I was feeling sleepy today, or not feeling really well, or I just didn't feel confident. It's kind of important stuff, but having it in sort of free-form text doesn't really do any analytical work for you. However, a little tip here, if you didn't have a good night's sleep, maybe put a column for sleep, yes or no, all right? So now you can drive it and say, we'll compare that to results and different outcomes and different tools that you used in comparison with maybe two or more tools or identification tools that you're using in your journal. Let's go through some of the things that I suggest at least beginning traders use in their initial journal setup. Now, everyone's going to be different. You're going to have different traders with different stages of development, different markets, right? So we want to keep it and individualize to each individual players, and you can use your accountability trader or partner or coach to do that. But for the beginning and developing traders, let's take a look at some of the ones that you may want to consider, and all of these will have that sort of data-driven analytics support behind it. Let's take a look. All right, let's start with the left column. Month, day of the week, strategy number, okay? You see what I said? Time, section of day. So for month, day of the week, pretty self-explanatory. We want to make sure we want to be able to compare results based on time, a month, and day of the week. There may be some seasonality issues that we want to bring up to highlight that you want to take advantage of. Strategy number. Notice how we didn't say trend-based strategy or reversion or whatever. Strategy number. So each strategy is going to have its own number assigned to it. That's going to allow you to use that in your analytics work, right? Compare them to other types of things. Like I said, strategy number 2 works really well with Fibonacci, where strategy 1 works much better with moving average, all right? It's time, section of day. Now, it's not just 9:54 a.m. I like to break it within 3 sections or 4. Pre-market, the first 2 hours of trade, lunchtime, and then the sort of power hour at the end. Why? Again, certain strategies work better in certain parts of the day. Do I care if 9:54 a.m. is maybe a different trade than 9:56? No, just break it into those 4 areas to say, hey, I could work on this strategy and focus on it more during this time of day because it has a better outcome, or I'm able to trade it better, higher compliance. Let's look at the next column, catalyst, right? Every trade must have a catalyst, a purpose of why you're doing it, okay? This is happening in the markets, and that's why I'm going long on this, okay? Whatever it is. Catalyst, we're going to code that to a certain number. So number 1, maybe NASDAQ is up higher than the prior day's close, so I'm going to go long NASDAQ or something like that, right? And we're going to put those and tie those to other metrics. Entry tool. What was the trigger? What was the thing that caused you to push that entry? Is it your trading plan saying enter at a moving average? That's fine, okay? Did you enter at that moving average on this strategy? What was your compliance rate when doing that? See how we're kind of putting this all together? Getting analytics out of your data, all right? Stop area. Where was that? Okay, we're going to use those analytics to say, what is your average stop, and get some risk reward information, which is below that. All right, let's go to the next column. For example, Hull trend. Now, that could be any type of thing. I'm using a Hull moving average. I love it, but maybe there's some other type of tool that you want. So when you go short on strategy 1 and the Hull is showing long, what are your results? All right, what are the results on the opposite side? Does it have any added value if you're in compliance or sort of say, in confluence really with the Hull trend? So if you're going long when the Hull is long, showing long, what's the difference in results? All right. So you can really identify what's the value of this tool, all right? Indicator. Right? Trade direction. Right? Again, are you taking a reversion trade versus a long trade, and you want to compare your results with that. 1-day ATR, again, just something that I see a lot with trade journals. I don't use it particularly, but what does ATR have an impact? I see a lot of traders saying, oh, I use ATR to determine my risk. And that's great. How's it working for you? The journal will identify it because you have your X number of days ATR. All right. And number of points for target. So we can compare the number of points you have versus, on average versus, the different strategies that you use. All right. We can compare those two. Let's go to the next column real quick. Magnet distance. So I personally have my target is usually a magnet, particularly VWAP, to be honest with you. That's like my number one magnet because my journal says it works the best. So that is going to be my target. So what's the distance between the average distance between my entry and my target, which is VWAP? That would be my first target. Okay, so I'm going to measure that. Do my results differ when my magnet distance is larger? Okay. Something to consider. Multiple targets. Are there multiple targets in that trade? Yes or no? And we can compare your overall profit factors. Do you have multiple targets or not, based on and broken down by particular strategy? Okay, so see how we're kind of taking 2 or 3 of these powerful pieces of data and we're letting it rise to the surface. It's telling you something as opposed to just recording in your journal. Right? VIX price. This is very important to me when I sell options premium. What's my average? What's the average VIX when I sell premium? Okay. Is it safe to say that when the VIX is higher, I'll be collecting more, but will I be making more? I don't know. It's a very important variable that I added about 2 years ago, and it's been very valuable. Result, higher VIX, I make more money. All right. Inside, outside, range. You could literally click on, have a combo box, say inside or outside. And you could look at your results based on was price within yesterday's range or outside of it. All right. So here's another little sort of advanced one. What about my strategies which are trend-based and I entered where price was inside yesterday's range? What was the same result when price was outside yesterday's range? You may be surprised. Check it out, right? This is why we're here, to get you started with these analytics type things. All right. Now we're looking at a market. This is the last column, market profile. I know a lot of people don't use it. I'm a big believer in it. All right. Was the market profile, was the profile in balance or price action in balance or an imbalanced state? All right. And we can get into that in another video, but that determines a big thing. Am I going to go trend-based with multiple targets if it's in a balanced state? No. Okay. So I'm going to measure 100% of my trades, or at least most of them, should be one target when the market's in a balanced state. Okay. Price action sort of in a range. News-driven event type. That's more of a yes or no. So was your trade driven on a news event or factor in a news event? And compare your results per strategy based on trades that were not at a news event. There's your answer. You always say, I don't know, I don't do well in news events, or I do really well. Really? This will tell you exactly what you're doing, right? Discretionary. So there's a discretionary element into your trade that you made, and compare your discretionary trades with non-discretionary. So that would be sort of a YN if you want. And compliance we talked about before. To me, that's the number one box. Did you execute your plan with compliance? And you could even break into subgroups and say compliance trade entry, compliance target, compliance risk reward, a lot of things like that. So you're really going to hone in on say, okay, I'm having a problem with this. And then you go to your trader or friend or coach, and we can identify that. So one of the key things here, and I know there's a lot, and we'll continue maybe with future videos if you want. So you just let me know in the comments, and we'll take a deeper dive into this. But the key question to ask yourself in your journal is, one, is it me or is it the markets? And really the compliance element will tell a lot about it. The second thing it will say is, what strategies are working with other variables? All right. So you could have they paint a picture where I had a really good week. Well, what was working? What wasn't? That's what an auditor, that's what a risk manager, that's what we would want to see. Take a deeper dive and then pounce on the ones that are working. The other thing is really identify what's working for you. What are you comfortable with? A lot of these strategies that we have in our group, they all work, so to speak. They have a positive expectancy, a positive edge, but they may have a less edge in a trend market and chop market, things like that. So we're going to compare all those different variables. But the most important thing is, how well do you execute it? So, all the edge can be there, but you may just have a better feel of executing trend-based trades versus reversion. It's a very common thing that we see, right? Others do better in reversion. So we want to factor in your ability to execute, and that's compliance, but also your results. And again, my results that I urge everyone to do is profit factor as opposed to win-loss. So let me know what you think about some of these data-driven analytics that you can put in your journal. Which ones you like, which ones you don't. Some of these may not apply to you. That's fine too. All right. Let me know in the comments. We can do a deeper dive too. I hinted on some of the ones where you can take 2 or 3 pieces of analytics and really bring your journal to the next level. What I'll do is click on the link below. I'll give you a list of all of these and some additional ones that you can compare to make your journal rise to the top and really scream some really cool information to help you become a better trader. Okay? Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.